Fish. Fish have been around for millions of years, which is about how much time I wasted on the original draft of this video. They first appeared over 530 million years ago in the Cambrian explosion. They have since survived through 4 mass extinctions and have become the dominant species in the oceans and other waterways of the Earth. Fish are now a key natural resource in numerous countries, a stunning example of nature's beauty, and to some, even pets, because nothing says animal lover like cramming an animal that once had an ocean into a bowl the size of your head. Despite all these achievements, the fish's parents still want them to be more like their cousins, the amphibians, and have thus created mudskippers, which are an affront to God and Satan alike. I'm not projecting, you are. Get back in the water, you little freaks. Despite the existence of mudskippers, the worst thing to ever happen to fish is this book, titled Fish, by L.S. Matthews. This book is a masterclass in all the things you should not do to a fish. So without further ado, let's get into Fish and see just how bad its treatment of fish is. I know I just said without further ado. However, there is now more ado, whatever that word may mean. Before we can discuss the horrible treatment of fish in this book, we need to first discuss the book itself. It's a crazy idea, but in order to talk about a book, you have to read it. This will have a detrimental effect on suburban book clubs. The book was written in 2003 by L.S. Matthews, a children's author. The book is set in the Middle East, seemingly around the time when the book was written. As I'm sure you know, the 1990s and 2000s were very good times for the Middle East, in which nothing bad happened. Don't Google it. I beg of you, do not Google it. Anyways, for no particular reason, resources in the Middle East were scarce during this time, which led to wars being fought over things such as water and food. This is what sets up the beginning of the book. The book starts by introducing us to a kid named Tiger and his family, who are aid workers from Britain. They've come to the Middle East to help civilians with an ongoing war. A lot of things are left up in the air by the book. For example, we never get to know which country the story takes place in, and we also never learn what Tiger's gender is. I imagine this was done to allow it to apply to different people and events, instead of being confined to one, which is a good way to make something timeless and universal, but I also think confirming the country could add to the world and make it feel more real. Tiger finds a fish in a puddle after a large rainstorm. Who would have guessed that there would be a fish in this book? Who would have guessed? When the family has to flee because the war is coming, Tiger takes the fish and stores it in a cooking pot. In order to maintain clarity, we will refer to the fish as Fish and the book as The Book. When Tiger gets home, they meet a man who is called Guide, and he has a donkey called Donkey. None of the characters have names. Get over it. After that, they flee and travel to the border. They're turned away and have to go through the mountains, which is going to be a much harder and much longer journey. Thankfully, it is still shorter than the average trip to the DMV. They travel through a muddy riverbed, and when Tiger falls in the mud, they lose the pot, and Fish is moved to a bottle. As the sounds of war get closer, the group goes over a narrow pass. The donkey almost falls to her death, and in order to save it, they give up a large portion of their supplies. This leaves them with no food and very little water for the rest of the journey. Thankfully, the journey should only be about another day if nothing goes wrong. Now, from here, it should be easy to guess what happens next. That's right, a group of free men with guns try to take them hostage, and the group gets split up. Tiger is eventually found by the man after they kill their youngest member, and he then hides in a mud stream to get away and almost suffocates. Then, after he came up, he was found by the group, and they continued to the mountain border. You guessed that, right? Right? Now that they're down the mountain, they head to the border, and this stupid child drops this fish twice and has to change its container 3 times. They then manage to get across the border, and Tiger is hospitalized. They part with Fish, Donkey, and Guide, and then they head to the airport and the book ends. Now, let's take a look at the fish husbandry in the book. Yeah, let's take a look at it. This book isn't just a bad example of fish care. I'm genuinely convinced this book doesn't even know what a fish is. There are so many errors and so many things that should have killed this fish, and yet just don't. At the beginning of the book, the fish is found in a puddle, which quickly turns into nothing more than mud. How the fish got there is a wonder to anyone with a brain. The fish survives this somehow. I was willing to excuse this at first, and how woefully ignorant I was. They then proceed to put the fish into a pot. They don't treat the water or acclimate the fish, and this would make the water unsuitable for said fish to live in, which kills it the first and second time. This isn't even mentioning that the pot is not enough space for a fish. They put the lid on the pot and then hold it in place with elastic bands, which would not be enough to keep the water in. The water would slowly drain, which would kill fish for a third time by slowly suffocating it. They then strap the fish to a donkey. With all the movement occurring, the fish would die a 4th time over from stress. The book also states that fish sleep. This is false. Fish do not sleep. They rest, but they do not sleep in the same way that people do. They then lose the pot that fish is in and have to move him to a plastic bottle. They once again do not treat the water or acclimate fish, killing it the 5th and 6th time. The bottle only has 2 small holes for the fish to breathe through. Since fish need oxygen that dissolves into the water, this would not be enough to give fish sufficient air. It dies for the 7th time. Then, when Tiger hides under the mud, the fish would also run out of oxygen there, killing it for the 8th time. But I might let you convince me that since Tiger survived, fish could too. But, out of pure spite for this book, I say fish should have died here. The bottle then breaks, killing fish for the 9th time. They then move the fish into a baking tray. Do I even need to say why this would kill the fish again? You get it. Fish dies for the 10th and 11th time. Also, the tray has lots of grease in it, which would kill the fish, as typically, oils aren't good for animals. Death number 12. The tray also doesn't have enough water in it. I give up. This is the 13th death and reason. They then put fish into Tiger's mouth. Supposedly, saliva will keep a fish alive. This is not true. Fish dies for the 14th time. This would also get Tiger very sick. Do not put live or raw fish into your mouth. Ever. Then, once they cross the border, they put fish into a new bottle, which may as well be a coffin because this is death number 15 and 16. They then introduced the fish into a river. Once again, they probably did not acclimate the fish, but it is natural water, so I will only add 1 death for this switch, bringing us to 17 dead fish. But we're not done. They also didn't feed the fish for the entire journey. Typically, fish can go 3 days to several weeks without food, but it really depends on the species. And under such immense stress, fish would have needed to eat more. As such, fish dies for the 18th time. However, we're still not done, because introducing fish into new waterways and countries they are not native to can have disastrous consequences. Admittedly, the fish may have been native to the general region and not just the country, but that is not confirmed, so the fish theft count could be somewhere in the thousands. There were also numerous other fish in bottles across the border, and if they were released, it would be even worse. But the main issue here is that all these fish are in tiny bottles, and all of them were likely not fed properly. Hate me if you want, but I am adding 100 dead fish to the counter, and that is being conservative. This puts the fish death counter at 118. God save us all, because we know he was the one who was saving those poor fish. Also, the fish changes sizes from big to small and then back to big. Fish don't do that. I hate this fish more than I hate the mud skippers. May it be kept in a small fishbowl forever as penance for its apparent crimes against nature. I need to take a breather and maybe develop multiple bad habits in order to blow off some steam. I'll be back in a moment. This fish should be dead. All in all, the story was average, but it is definitely worth a read. I left out a lot of details so that you could enjoy the book for yourself, but I wanted to get the major plot points across. Just be warned, even though it is a children's book, it doesn't pull its punches. There are scenes in this book that are heart-wrenching. Overall, I give the book itself a 7 out of 10. Not enough water. However, for the numerous dead fish, the score has been reduced to 6.8. Because this is my report, and I can score it how I want. I highly recommend this book if you just want a short and sweet book, or if you hate fish and wish to watch them suffer.